Marcus sits in his car outside the office building at 8:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. The engine is running. His hands rest on the steering wheel at exactly 10 and 2, the way his driving instructor taught him 17 years ago. 23 minutes have passed since he pulled into this parking spot. 23 minutes of absolute stillness. His phone screen glows with 14 unread messages, the coffee in the cup holder has gone from scalding to lukewarm to cold, and he cannot remember a single detail of the 32-minute drive from his apartment to this parking lot. Not the traffic lights. Not the songs on the radio. Not the color of the sky. Nothing. This isn't burnout. Marcus knows burnout. He's read the articles, listened to the podcasts. This is something else entirely. Something that sits deeper in his chest, heavier, more permanent. There's a weight pressing down on his sternum, not painful but insistent, like someone placed a hand there and forgot to remove it. His mind feels wrapped in cotton, thoughts moving slowly through thick fog. And strangest of all is this sensation of watching himself from somewhere outside his body, seeing Marcus the architect sitting in his silver sedan, knowing exactly what he should do next: grab his laptop bag, lock the car, walk through those glass doors, take the elevator to the 4th floor, smile at Rebecca from accounting, log into his computer, open the Henderson project file, and being completely, inexplicably unable to move. Have you ever felt that? That bizarre split where one part of you knows exactly what needs to happen and another part has simply stopped? Marcus's left eye twitches. 3 times. He notices it happening but can't stop it. A man in a blue tie walks past his car, glances at him briefly, keeps walking. Does he look crazy? Does he look like someone having a breakdown? No, probably not. Probably just looks like someone checking their phone. Everyone sits in their cars checking their phones now. It's the new normal. Marcus isn't checking his phone though. He's staring at his own hands, noting how strange they look gripping the wheel, like they belong to someone else. When did his hands start looking so unfamiliar? He flexes his fingers. They obey. Everything works. Nothing is broken. So why does everything feel broken? At 8:51 a.m., Marcus finally moves. Not because he makes a decision, but because his body simply executes the programmed sequence. Grab bag. Open door. Stand up. Lock car. Walk. His legs carry him forward while his mind watches from that strange distant place. The glass doors slide open automatically. Cold air conditioning hits his face. The lobby smells like coffee and cleaning solution and something else, something he can't name but recognizes from every office building he's ever entered. Familiar. Safe. Predictable. Marcus nods at the security guard whose name he's never learned despite seeing him 5 days a week for 3 years. The elevator button glows orange when he presses it. These tiny details suddenly feel overwhelmingly vivid, like his brain has decided to notice everything except the things that actually matter. Morning, Marcus. Rebecca's voice cuts through his fog as the elevator doors open on the 4th floor. She's holding 2 file folders and wearing that yellow cardigan she wears every Tuesday. Yes, Tuesday. The yellow cardigan day. How does he know that? When did he start tracking what Rebecca wears? Morning, he hears himself respond, his voice sounding completely normal, completely fine. His face arranges itself into what feels like a smile. Rebecca smiles back. She has no idea. No one has any idea. Marcus walks to his desk, sets down his bag, moves his mouse to wake his computer, enters his password automatically, fingers knowing the sequence without conscious thought, and opens the Henderson project file. The screen fills with blueprints, measurements, notes, revision histories. He's supposed to finalize the 3rd floor modifications today. The deadline is Friday. Everything is on schedule. Everything is fine. Except nothing is fine, and Marcus realizes with sudden crystalline clarity that he has no idea how long he's been feeling this way. Weeks? Months? Has he always felt this disconnected and just never noticed until now? His calendar shows 4 meetings scheduled today. The first one starts in 12 minutes. Marcus opens his email. New message from his sister: "Hey, can you grab Mom's birthday gift? I'm swamped this week." Another message from his gym with the subject line, "We miss you." A promotional email about productivity software. An invitation to connect on LinkedIn from someone he doesn't recognize. He reads each one without actually processing any words. His eyes move across the sentences, his brain recognizes the letters as language, but meaning refuses to form. It's like trying to read underwater. Marcus closes his email and stares at the Henderson blueprints. The third floor modifications. Right. He needs to adjust the western corridor to accommodate the new HVAC system. He's known this for 2 weeks. He's thought about it probably 40 times. He's just never actually done it. Why hasn't he done it? There's no reason. No obstacle. No missing information. He simply hasn't. And now it's Tuesday, and Friday is coming, and Marcus is sitting at his desk feeling the weight in his chest grow heavier, the fog in his mind grow thicker, and something like panic starting to whisper at the edges of his consciousness. The first meeting passes. Marcus attends it somehow. He hears himself speak. He apparently says things that make sense because people nod and take notes and no one looks at him with concern. But he couldn't tell you what was discussed if someone offered him $1,000. The second meeting happens. Then lunch, which he doesn't remember eating. Then the third meeting. The afternoon light slants through the office windows at that particular angle that means it's around 3:30. Marcus's computer screen shows the same Henderson blueprints, unchanged. His cursor blinks in the same position. 5 hours have passed. He's accomplished nothing. Not because he's been busy. Not because of interruptions. He's been sitting here, staring, existing in this strange suspended state where time moves but he doesn't. His phone vibrates. Text from his friend David: "Drinks Thursday? Been too long, man." Marcus types yes, then deletes it. Types "can't this week," then deletes that too. Types "let me check my schedule," which is absurd because he knows his schedule and Thursday evening is completely free and he has no reason to say no except that the thought of going out, of being social, of performing the role of Marcus who has his life together feels impossibly exhausting. He exits the message without responding. David will understand. Or he won't. Either way, Marcus can't seem to care, which bothers him because he does care about David, he thinks, he's pretty sure he does, but the caring feels theoretical, like something happening behind glass. At 5:47 p.m., Marcus drives home. Takes the same route. Doesn't remember the drive. Parks in his assigned spot. Walks up 2 flights of stairs because the elevator feels too social, too risky. Someone might get in and try to talk to him. Unlocks his apartment door. Sets down his bag in the exact same spot he sets it down every single day, next to the bookshelf with the books he hasn't touched in months. His apartment is clean but not tidy. There are no dishes in the sink but there's dust on the coffee table. Everything is maintained at exactly the level of functionality required to avoid criticism, avoid concern, avoid anyone noticing that Marcus is just going through the motions. He opens his refrigerator. Stares at the contents. Chicken breast. Vegetables. Yogurt. All healthy. All appropriate. All completely unappealing. He closes the refrigerator and orders food from his phone instead. Thai food. The same Thai place he ordered from last Tuesday. And the Tuesday before that. When did Tuesday become Thai food day? He doesn't remember deciding that. It just is. While waiting for the delivery, Marcus does something he hasn't done in years. He opens a drawer in his bedroom, the bottom drawer that holds things he never looks at, and pulls out an old notebook. College notebook. The pages are yellowed, covered in his younger handwriting, architectural sketches mixed with random thoughts and quotes and plans. So many plans. 30 by 30 lists and travel destinations and business ideas and sketches of buildings that don't exist. He flips through the pages and feels like he's looking at artifacts from an archaeological dig. Evidence of a person who once existed. 22-year-old Marcus, who stayed up until 3 a.m. arguing about design philosophy, who entered competitions, who believed he was going to design something that mattered, who felt things with intensity and certainty. What happened to that person? Where did he go? It wasn't a single event. No tragedy. No betrayal. No crisis. Just a slow, imperceptible fading. Like color draining from a photograph, so gradually you don't notice until one day you realize everything has turned gray. The food arrives. Marcus eats it on his couch while scrolling through his phone, not watching anything in particular, just scrolling, that endless vertical motion that fills time without filling anything else. His eyes scan past news articles, memes, videos, advertisements, a constant stream of content that washes over him without leaving any impression. He's tired but not sleepy. Restless but without desire to do anything. At 9:30 p.m., he closes his laptop, brushes his teeth, gets into bed. Lies there in the dark. And this is when the real Marcus appears. The one who's been watching all day from that distant place. This is when the internal voice that's been silent all day suddenly starts speaking. Why can't you just do the work? What's wrong with you? Everyone else manages. You're not special. You're not traumatized. You're just lazy. Just undisciplined. Just weak. Tomorrow. Tomorrow you'll be better. Tomorrow you'll focus. Tomorrow you'll respond to David. Tomorrow you'll actually do something. Tomorrow. Marcus repeats this word like a prayer, like a promise, knowing even as he thinks it that tomorrow will be exactly like today, has been exactly like today for longer than he wants to admit. But tonight, something different happens. As Marcus lies there in the dark, he has a thought that cuts through the fog like a blade. What if this isn't his fault? What if there's a reason? Not an excuse, but an actual neurological, psychological, biological reason why he feels this way? What if his brain is doing something to him that he doesn't understand? The thought is small but insistent. Marcus picks up his phone and types into the search bar, "Why do I feel stuck?" The results flood his screen. Thousands of articles. Millions of people asking the same question. He reads one article, then another, then another. Terms appear that he's never seen before. Default mode network. Limbic friction. Dopamine prediction error. Neuroplasticity. Amygdala hijack. Most of it is too technical, too abstract, but scattered through these articles are descriptions that make his breath catch in his throat. Your brain treats unfamiliar actions as threats. The nervous system prioritizes predictability over growth. You're not unmotivated, you're dysregulated. These aren't just words. They're descriptions of his life. Of this feeling. Of what's been happening to him. Marcus sits up in bed. It's 11:43 p.m. now. He's been reading for over 2 hours. His mind feels clearer than it's felt in months, not because he understands everything, not because he has solutions, but because he's suddenly realized that what he's experiencing has a name, has a mechanism, has been studied and documented and understood by people who know how brains work. This isn't personal weakness. This isn't moral failure. This is neuroscience. His brain, that 3-pound organ in his skull, has somehow learned to keep him trapped in patterns that no longer serve him, and it's doing this not because it hates him but because it's trying to protect him. From what? From uncertainty. From change. From the discomfort of unfamiliarity. His brain has become an overprotective parent, refusing to let him leave the house because outside is scary and unpredictable and full of things that might hurt him. And Marcus has been obeying. Not because he wants to. Not because he's weak. But because he didn't know he had a choice. He finds a video lecture by a neuroscientist explaining something called the default mode network, the part of the brain that activates during rest, during daydreaming, during autopilot behaviors. This network is supposed to help us reflect, plan, imagine. But it can also trap us in loops, repetitive thoughts, rumination, habitual patterns that run automatically beneath conscious awareness. The neuroscientist explains that when we perform familiar actions, our brains expend minimal energy. Everything is efficient, predictable, safe. But when we try something new, when we break a pattern, the brain suddenly has to work harder. Different neural networks activate. Uncertainty registers as potential danger. Cortisol increases. The amygdala, that ancient threat detection center, starts sending alarm signals. And without us even realizing it, our brain starts generating reasons, excuses, distractions, anything to pull us back into familiar territory. Marcus pauses the video. This is exactly what he does. Every single time he considers doing something different, taking a risk, making a change, his mind immediately floods with reasons why it's not the right time, why it won't work, why he should wait, why he should stick with what's safe. He's always thought these were his thoughts, his decisions. But what if they're not? What if they're his brain's automatic defense system, hijacking his decision-making to keep him in the cage? That night, Marcus dreams about a door. He's standing in a hallway, completely white, completely empty except for a single door at the end. The door is wooden, ordinary, with a brass handle. Marcus walks toward it. He needs to open it. Something important waits on the other side, he can feel it, but when he reaches for the handle, his hand stops. He tries again. His arm moves forward but his hand refuses to grip the handle. He tries with both hands. He tries pushing his body against the door. Nothing works. He's frozen there, inches from the door, unable to cross the final distance. And the worst part is the feeling that accompanies this paralysis. Not fear. Not anxiety. Just a heavy, suffocating sense of resignation. Of course he can't open the door. He's never been able to open doors. He's the person who stands in hallways. This is just who he is. Marcus wakes up at 4:17 a.m. with his heart pounding, that dream feeling still clinging to him like cobwebs. Wednesday happens. Then Thursday. Marcus moves through them in the same fog. But something is different now. He's watching himself with new awareness. When he sits in his car unable to move, he thinks limbic friction. When he deletes texts before sending them, he thinks threat response. When he opens the Henderson file and accomplishes nothing, he thinks default mode network. Naming the mechanisms doesn't fix them, but it creates a tiny gap, a small space between the feeling and his identity. He's not a lazy person experiencing laziness. He's a person whose brain is running an outdated protection protocol. This distinction feels crucial, though he can't articulate exactly why. Thursday evening, David's text about drinks glows on his screen. Marcus stares at it for a full minute. His brain immediately generates the familiar responses. You're too tired. You won't enjoy it. You have nothing interesting to say. David will realize you're boring now. Stay home. It's safer. But this time, Marcus recognizes these thoughts as his amygdala speaking, not his actual self. This time, he types yes and sends it before his brain can stop him. The moment he hits send, anxiety floods his system. His heart rate increases. His palms actually sweat. He just agreed to social interaction. His nervous system treats this like he's agreed to walk into a burning building. Marcus sits with the discomfort. Doesn't try to fix it. Doesn't distract himself. Just lets it exist. And after about 60 seconds, it starts to fade. Not disappear. Just fade from overwhelming to manageable. This tiny victory feels disproportionately huge. Friday afternoon, Marcus sits across from David at a bar that's trying very hard to be sophisticated but mostly just seems dark and loud. David is talking about his job, some drama with his boss, a project that's going sideways. Marcus realizes he's actually listening. Not performing listening. Actually processing the words. This hasn't happened in a while. David pauses, looks at him with that expression people get when they're about to ask a real question. You doing okay, man? You seem. I don't know. Different lately. And Marcus has a choice here. He can do what he's been doing for months, deflect, minimize, perform the role of fine Marcus. Or he can do something terrifying. He can tell the truth. I've been stuck, Marcus hears himself say. Like really stuck. Can't focus, can't decide things, just going through the motions. It's been weird. David doesn't immediately try to fix it or offer advice. He just nods. Yeah. I get that. Had a whole year like that after my dad died. Felt like I was underwater. They sit in silence for a moment. Marcus realizes that David just gave him permission to be not okay. Didn't judge it. Didn't minimize it. Just acknowledged it as a thing that happens to humans. This conversation lasts maybe 3 minutes total, but Marcus feels something shift. Some small locked door inside him opening just a crack. The weekend brings a strange kind of restlessness. Marcus can't settle into his usual patterns. He tries to scroll through his phone but it feels hollow. He tries to watch TV but can't focus. Sunday afternoon, he does something impulsive. He goes to a park. Just sits on a bench. Watches people. A couple walking a dog. A kid learning to ride a bike. An old man feeding pigeons from a paper bag. Marcus watches the old man for a long time. There's something mesmerizing about his movements, methodical and careful, tearing pieces of bread into precise sizes, distributing them evenly so every pigeon gets some. The man notices Marcus watching and nods. Marcus nods back. The man gestures to the empty space on the bench. Mind if I sit? As if it's not already his bench, his park, his routine. Marcus shakes his head. Please. They sit in silence for a while, the old man continuing to feed the pigeons, Marcus continuing to watch. Finally, the old man speaks. You look like someone trying to figure something out. Marcus almost laughs. That obvious? I've been old a long time. You see patterns. The man tears another piece of bread. You know what's interesting about birds? They're born knowing how to fly. It's instinct. But you put a bird in a cage for its whole life, then open the cage door, and it won't leave. Not because it can't fly. Because the cage became its whole world. The unknown is more terrifying than the familiar prison. Marcus feels something crystallize in his chest. This metaphor, this simple story about a bird, captures everything he's been trying to understand. He's not broken. He's not weak. He's just been living in a cage for so long that he forgot there were other options. His brain built the cage bar by bar, habit by habit, fear by fear, all in the name of keeping him safe, and now that cage is so familiar it feels like home. What made you think of that? Marcus asks. The old man shrugs. Had a career I hated for 30 years. Stayed because it was safe. Familiar. Then one day my wife asked me a question that changed everything. She said, "Are you living or are you just not dying?" Couldn't stop thinking about it. Quit the job 6 months later. Were you scared? Terrified. Brain tried every trick to keep me in that office. But here's what I learned. The fear doesn't go away. You just get better at doing things while scared. You teach your brain that uncertainty won't kill you. Takes time. Takes repetition. But it's possible. The old man stands up, brushes bread crumbs from his pants. Good luck with whatever you're figuring out. Then he walks away, leaving Marcus alone on the bench with his thoughts and the pigeons and the profound realization that change isn't about becoming a different person. It's about teaching your current brain new patterns. Monday morning, Marcus sits in his car in the office parking lot. 8:47 a.m. 23 minutes early again. But this time, he's not frozen. He's making a choice. He's sitting here deliberately, feeling the anxiety, noticing the weight in his chest, acknowledging the fog in his mind, and understanding that these sensations are his nervous system trying to maintain homeostasis. His brain wants everything to stay the same. But Marcus doesn't. He starts the Henderson modifications. Not perfectly. Not brilliantly. He just starts. Opens the file. Makes one small adjustment to the Western corridor. Then another. His brain immediately generates distractions. Suddenly he needs coffee. Suddenly that email from last week seems urgent. Suddenly he should really reorganize his desk. Marcus notices these impulses, names them as resistance, and keeps working. It's uncomfortable. It requires constant conscious effort. But he does it for 20 minutes straight. 20 minutes of actual focused work. Then he stops, not because he's done but because he's reached his capacity. 20 minutes is his current limit. That's fine. That's data. Tomorrow maybe he can do 25 minutes. Over the next weeks, Marcus starts running experiments on his own brain. Small, deliberate disruptions to his patterns. He takes a different route to work. Orders something unexpected for lunch. Responds to texts without rewriting them 5 times. Goes to a coffee shop instead of making coffee at home. Each tiny change activates that uncomfortable alarm feeling in his nervous system. Each time, he sits with the discomfort for 60 seconds, lets it peak, then watches it fade. His brain slowly, reluctantly starts to learn that new things aren't dangerous. That uncertainty doesn't equal death. The changes aren't dramatic. No one watching Marcus's life from the outside would notice anything different. But inside, something fundamental is shifting. The cage is still there. But Marcus is testing the door. Pushing against it. Finding that it was never actually locked. It was just familiar. And familiarity feels like safety even when it's actually a prison. There are setbacks. Days when the old patterns reassert themselves completely. When Marcus sits in his car for 40 minutes unable to move. When he accomplishes nothing at work. When he cancels plans and scrolls through his phone until midnight and wakes up feeling like he's back at square one. But now he understands that setbacks aren't failures. They're his brain trying to return to baseline. And each time he recognizes what's happening, he's practicing awareness. Building new neural pathways. Teaching his amygdala that he's safe even when things are uncertain. The neuroscience literature calls this uncertainty tolerance. The ability to function while not knowing what will happen. Most people, Marcus learns, have terrible uncertainty tolerance. Their brains generate anxiety as a way to push them back toward predictability. But uncertainty tolerance can be trained like a muscle. Small doses of uncertainty, repeated over time, gradually expanding your nervous system's window of what feels safe. 3 months after that Tuesday morning in the parking lot, Marcus submits the Henderson project 2 days early. Finalizes modifications he's been avoiding for weeks. His boss sends an email, "Great work. Can you take lead on the Mitchell project? Marcus reads this email at 4:47 p.m. on a Thursday. His immediate instinct is to decline. Too much responsibility. Too much visibility. Too much risk. But he notices the instinct. Recognizes it as his brain trying to keep him small, keep him safe, keep him in the familiar cage. He types, "Yes, I'm interested," and sends it. The anxiety comes. The doubt comes. The voice saying he's not ready, not capable, going to fail. Marcus lets these thoughts exist without obeying them. Sits with the discomfort. 60 seconds. It fades. He's teaching his brain a new language. The language of tolerating uncertainty. Of choosing growth over comfort. Of opening doors even when you can't see what's on the other side. That night, Marcus dreams about the door again. Same white hallway. Same wooden door at the end. He walks toward it and reaches for the handle. This time, his hand moves freely. He grips the brass handle and turns it. The door opens easily, swinging outward on smooth hinges. No resistance. No lock. It was never locked. Marcus looks through the open doorway and sees another hallway. Another door at the end. And he laughs in the dream, understanding the message. There's no final destination. No moment when you're permanently fixed. Just an infinite series of doors, each one requiring the same choice. Stay in the familiar hallway or walk through uncertainty toward the next one. Growth isn't a destination. It's a practice. A daily choice to push against your brain's conservative impulses. To acknowledge the fear and move anyway. To sit with discomfort long enough for your nervous system to learn that you're safe. Marcus starts noticing other people stuck in their own versions of the cage. His coworker Sarah, who's been talking about changing careers for 3 years but never takes any steps. His sister, who stays in a relationship that clearly makes her unhappy because leaving feels more frightening than staying. His former roommate posting about starting a business someday, always someday, never today. He sees the same pattern everywhere. People imprisoned not by external circumstances but by their own brain's overprotective mechanisms. And he wants to tell them what he's learned. That being stuck isn't a character flaw. It's a neurological phenomenon. That change doesn't require motivation or discipline or willpower. It requires understanding how your brain works and gently, persistently teaching it new patterns. That you can't think your way out of being stuck. You have to act your way out, one tiny uncomfortable action at a time, building evidence for your nervous system that uncertainty is survivable. But Marcus also learns that you can't force this awareness on people. They have to arrive at it themselves, usually through their own version of sitting in a car at 8:47 a.m. unable to remember the drive, feeling the weight in their chest, recognizing that something has to change. All he can do is live differently. Be the evidence that change is possible. That cage doors can open. That brains can learn. 5 months later, Marcus is having coffee with his college friend Emma, who's visiting from Seattle. Emma is describing her life, successful by every metric, good job, nice apartment, relationship, yet she keeps using words like stuck and numb and going through the motions. Marcus recognizes the language immediately. He tells her about his Tuesday morning in the parking lot. About the neuroscience he learned. About the old man and the bird in the cage. About teaching your brain uncertainty tolerance. Emma listens with the kind of intensity that tells Marcus she's hearing something she needed to hear. So how do I start, she asks. And Marcus realizes this is the question. This is always the question. How do you begin to break patterns that are running automatically, beneath conscious awareness, governed by neural networks designed to resist exactly this kind of change? You start small, Marcus says. So small your brain doesn't register it as a threat. You don't try to change your whole life at once. You just do one tiny thing differently. Take a different route. Order different food. Respond instead of overthinking. And when your brain freaks out, which it will, you sit with that feeling for 60 seconds. You let it exist without trying to fix it or avoid it. You teach your nervous system through experience that uncertainty won't destroy you. Then tomorrow you do another tiny thing. And slowly, over weeks and months, your brain's definition of safe expands. The cage gets bigger. Then one day you realize the cage is just a habit, not a necessity. And habits can change. Emma nods slowly, processing. That's simple? That's simple, Marcus says. Not easy. Simple. Your brain will resist. It'll generate every excuse, every distraction, every reason to stay the same. But if you recognize that resistance as your nervous system trying to protect you, not as truth, you can choose differently. Over and over. Until choosing differently becomes the new pattern. 6 months after that Tuesday morning, Marcus takes on the Mitchell project. It's the biggest project he's led in his career. He's terrified. His brain throws every warning signal it can generate. You're not ready. You're going to fail. Everyone will see you're a fraud. Marcus acknowledges these thoughts, thanks his amygdala for trying to protect him, and does the work anyway. Not because the fear goes away. Because he's learned to function while afraid. Because he's expanded his uncertainty tolerance to include bigger risks. Because he's taught his brain through repeated experience that discomfort isn't danger. The project has problems. There are mistakes. There are moments of doubt and anxiety and that old familiar fog trying to creep back in. But Marcus has tools now. He notices when he's slipping into autopilot and deliberately disrupts the pattern. He catches himself avoiding difficult tasks and does them anyway, for just 20 minutes, just enough to prevent his brain from reinforcing avoidance. He sits with discomfort instead of immediately seeking distraction. Slowly, painfully, imperfectly, he's rewiring his neural pathways. One Thursday evening, Marcus realizes he forgot to respond to David about weekend plans. Not because he was avoiding it. Because he was genuinely busy and it slipped his mind. This might seem insignificant, but for Marcus it represents a seismic shift. His brain used to treat social obligations as threats requiring elaborate avoidance strategies. Now they're just normal parts of life that sometimes slip his mind like anything else. His nervous system has recalibrated. Social interaction no longer registers as danger. This is what healing looks like. Not dramatic transformation. Just subtle shifts in what feels normal. The cage expanding so gradually you barely notice until one day you look around and realize you have so much more room to move. The Henderson project finishes. The Mitchell project progresses. Marcus gets feedback from his boss: strong work, creative solutions, good leadership. He reads this feedback and feels satisfied. Actually satisfied. Not the hollow performance of satisfaction. Not the immediate dismissal of praise his brain used to generate automatically. Genuine satisfaction. When did that become possible again? Marcus starts mentoring a younger architect at his firm. Notices the kid exhibiting the same stuck patterns. Perfectionism covering for fear. Procrastination disguised as thoughtfulness. Avoiding challenges while claiming to wait for the right opportunity. Marcus doesn't lecture. Just shares his own experience. The parking lot. The fog. The cage. The door. The kid listens with that same intensity Emma had. Maybe it helps. Maybe it doesn't. Marcus is learning that you can't save people from their own stuck patterns. You can only show them it's possible to escape. The actual work of escaping they have to do themselves. Marcus still has bad days. Days when the old patterns resurface completely. When he sits on his couch scrolling through his phone until midnight, accomplishing nothing, feeling nothing, existing in that familiar numb fog. But now these days are occasional rather than constant. And crucially, Marcus no longer interprets them as evidence of permanent failure. They're just his brain temporarily reverting to old programming under stress. Tomorrow he can choose differently. And he usually does. This is the real victory. Not perfection. Not permanent transformation. Just a slowly improving batting average. More good days than bad days. More moments of presence than autopilot. More choices made consciously than reactively. More doors opened than avoided. 8 months after that Tuesday morning, Marcus is sitting on the same park bench where he met the old man. He comes here sometimes now, just to sit, just to notice. The old man isn't here today. Different people, different dogs, different pigeons. Marcus watches a kid about 7 years old attempting to climb a tree. The kid gets a few feet up, freezes, climbs back down. Tries again. Freezes again. The kid's mom calls out encouragement. You can do it. Just one branch higher. The kid shakes their head, clearly wanting to climb higher but unable to make their body cooperate. Marcus sees himself in this kid. Sees everyone in this kid. The gap between wanting something and doing it. Between knowing what would help and being able to execute it. The kid tries one more time. Gets to the same spot. Freezes. Then does something interesting. Stays frozen for a long moment, clearly uncomfortable, clearly scared, but doesn't climb down. Just stays there. Breathing. Waiting. And after maybe 30 seconds, reaches up for the next branch. Makes it. Looks down at the mom with pure triumph. The mom cheers. Marcus smiles. That kid just practiced uncertainty tolerance without knowing it. Just taught their nervous system that they could survive being scared. Just pushed their cage a little bigger. Marcus thinks about 22-year-old Marcus, the one from the college notebook with all the plans and certainty and fire. He doesn't mourn that person anymore. Doesn't wish he could return to that version of himself. Because that Marcus didn't know what 34-year-old Marcus knows. That confidence without struggle is just ignorance of how hard things can get. That motivation without discipline is just dopamine chasing. That staying stuck isn't moral failure but neurological protection that's outlived its usefulness. That becoming unstuck isn't about dramatic transformation but about patient, persistent reprogramming of your own brain. About teaching your nervous system through action, not thought. About expanding your definition of safety to include uncertainty. About choosing discomfort repeatedly until it becomes less uncomfortable. About opening doors even when you can't see what's beyond them. Marcus's phone buzzes. Text from his sister, Mom's birthday dinner Sunday. You coming? His brain immediately generates the old excuses. Too busy. Too tired. Too much effort. Marcus notices the resistance, smiles at it like an old friend who means well but gives bad advice, and types, yes, I'll be there. Sends it. Feels the brief spike of anxiety. Sits with it. It fades. He's teaching his brain the same lesson over and over and over. That he's safe. That new is okay. That uncertain is survivable. That stuck is a choice disguised as a circumstance. That doors open when you push them. That cages dissolve when you realize they were never locked, just familiar, and familiarity is the most seductive prison because it feels like home. The sun is setting now, golden light slanting across the park. Marcus stands up from the bench. He doesn't have a destination in mind. He's going to walk in a direction he's never walked before, just to practice. Just to give his brain more evidence that unexplored territories are survivable. Just to push the cage a little wider. Tomorrow he'll wake up and his brain will try to pull him back toward familiar patterns. That's fine. Expected. Normal. And Marcus will notice it happening and choose differently. Not perfectly. Not every time. But often enough. Often enough to keep the doors open. Often enough to keep the cage expanding. Often enough to keep moving from stuck toward something that resembles freedom. Not the dramatic freedom of completely starting over. The quiet freedom of having more choices available. Of being able to act on intentions instead of just thinking about them. Of living instead of just not dying. This is what breaking free actually looks like. Not a single moment of liberation but 1,000 tiny choices to do the uncomfortable thing. To push against your brain's conservative impulses. To open doors. To leave cages. To walk toward uncertainty with your nervous system screaming warnings the whole way. Until eventually, slowly, your nervous system learns a new song. And being free becomes exactly as familiar as being stuck once was. Just a pattern. Just a habit. Just neural pathways firing automatically. But pathways you chose. Doors you opened. A cage you walked out of one tiny, uncomfortable, courageous step at a time.